Selling the soundtrack.
Welcome back, everybody, to Selling the Soundtrack, your go-to pod for everything music sync licensing. If you're already making bangers, your music could be making you bank. Today, we're here with Alex Petkovski, also known under her artist project FJØRA. She's a singer, songwriter, composer, and multi-instrumentalist who specializes in electronics and cinematic music, but really makes all kinds of genres and hybrid genres. Alex is a director for the Alliance for Women's Film Composers and an officer for the board for the Screen Composers Guild of Canada. She won first place for the 2023 World Trailer Awards, was nominated for the 2023 Guild of Music Supervisors Canada Awards for Artist and Songwriter of the Year, and was an award winner for the 2022 Hollywood Music and Media and 20th Annual Game Audio Network Guild Awards. She's made music for huge brands like Xbox and Adidas, as well as for big TV and movie spots like Welcome to the Blumhouse, and tons of other projects streaming on Disney Plus, Netflix, and more. Thanks so much for being here today, Alex.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for the, big spiel. My head will not fit the headphones.
Yeah, when I was doing research on you, I was like, holy moly, this girl's been a part of so many things, and like your
Yes.
accolade list is huge.
Thank you.
Um, could you share with us a bit about you and your journey in sync?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my journey, I think there's zigging and zagging. I think there's no straightforward trajectory necessarily for anybody. So I'm no exception to this. I actually began from a very film scoring centric space where that was my initial intention was to be scoring for the screen.
Mm,
And I still, was doing that, but I started getting involved in the trailer space and my artist project, which I was creating cinematic electronic music in, started gaining real traction in the trailer spaces as well as advertising, film and TV sync worlds, in use for shows, promos. And then that also ultimately led me to doing custom projects with my artist project. For like video games and writing songs that were used across these kinds of mediums, and then that kind of it full circle led me back to scoring centric spaces where now I'll score projects, and I will have like in the needle drop moment where a song would be licensed, for instance, I
mm.
can create the song that would go there as well. So there's a real dialogue between score and what is known as quintessential soundtrack.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you kind of started with Fiora and just like funneling energy into your artist project, and then opportunities kind of started coming.
Well, definitely. I mean, I will say everything I do is it's very intentional. So, yeah, around the time that the Fiora artist project really was born and came into fruition, I
Mhm.
was engaging myself in recording studio sessions, co-writes, all the collaborative kind of processes, meeting different artists, writers, producers, and working with them. And then it's the domino effect. People introduce you to this person. It's a human to human relationship based industry, I find. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was very much like this sort of, oh, this session went great. You know what? Alex, you should meet so and so. We should get you in the room. We'll do this session together, and that sort of snowballed. And yeah,
Mm.
simultaneous to that, I was fortunate enough to have kind of fostered and built up relationships with music supervisors who are integral to the music industry landscape from a
Mhm.
sync, a scoring, all of that. They're super, super vital. But of course, in the sync world, they're 100% a part of that recipe. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so definitely.
Very cool. I've heard on
Yes.
repeat that this is a people's industry.
Yeah,
Everyone keeps saying that.
yeah.
When you were reaching out for collaborations, were you looking for people involved in the space that you wanted to be involved in? So, for example, like you were researching like trailer composers and messaging them and saying, "Hey, like, love your work, would love to work with you," or was it just anybody in sync?
Yeah, I think I definitely I mean, so I was saying yes. I was saying yes to it's like that Jim Carrey movie. It's like I was saying yes to, all opportunities that kind of
Mhm.
flew across my radar, but I
Mhm.
was throughout the beginning of the process to the middle of the process, let's say, I started like with this huge net where it's like, anybody that'll work with me, let's work together. I love your stuff. Let's work together.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then throughout that process, though, um, I found the people, and I continue to find the people that I really respond to. I feel they respond well to me. We work together really efficiently, and also we like each other. I think that's a huge piece of the pie as well. It's like, you know, no one wants to work with, well, I mean, sometimes in life you have to, but it's nice to be able to work with friends. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so definitely I was, as I started understanding what I felt and resonated with the most in the music making space, I
Mhm.
would then be very intentional with who I was either repeating sessions with and or who then I may, reach out to or try and connect with.
And when you were doing these collaboration projects, were you kind of like hands off at the beginning because you're like, I'm just entering into this industry, or were you like actively pitching the music to alongside your collaborators?
Yeah, I think for me, honestly, like I started creating before any sort of pitching happened for me. It was really about product and like creating songs and creating, pieces of work that I felt proud of, that I felt like this feels good to me. I always say a cool song is a cool song. So,
Mhm.
not necessarily like written specifically for a trailer, let's just say, like as an example. It's more like
Mhm.
creating songs that I really just thought were cool. And then
Mhm.
once I had this like mini catalog, or like playlist, then I
Mhm.
had actual product for which I could pull up if people asked, when they had opportunities for things.
Mhm.
And I'm not a huge, I mean, people do it and it's awesome. I'm not like the cold call style, like email type thing. I'm not saying
Yeah.
don't do it. I'm just saying
Mhm.
for me on my journey, like I didn't really do too much of that. It was very much, this was also pre-pandemic though too. Like, cause
Yeah.
I know that changed the landscape 100%. Cause yeah,
Mhm.
I was able to be like in person.
Yeah.
I was in, I think at the time I was living in Nashville. So I was like in and out of studios like very frequently throughout the week.
Yeah.
And and then, those people know music supervisors because they work in the space. So it is all kind of,
Mhm.
the dots connect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's cool hearing about everybody's story because it's so different for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's cool to hear that you kind of did the more, it's kinda old school. It's where, like, you're meeting in person and networking in person rather than being like, "Let's hop on a Zoom call," or "Let's email." So that's
Yeah.
cool to hear.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think like I always say this as like kind of advice piece too now. Like the idea of no, like yes and no, right? Like
Mhm.
um if cuz I also, I applied myself to like different workshops, initiatives, lab opportunities in the music industry zone.
Mhm.
And a no, like, because rejection is a part of the fabric. So, like, a no today could be a yes if I reapplied for the same thing in 6 months or a year or whatever, right? So, a
Mhm.
no in itself, in this industry anyway, like if you're in it for the long game, a no or
Mhm.
rejection, it's never really a no. It can be a yes.
Mhm.
And that's part of the
Mhm.
reveal, right? Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
when you say reapply, do you mean, like, reach out for, like, a similar project or, like, reach out to a
Totally.
similar supervisor? Okay, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's I think like what we were talking about like human to human.
Mhm.
People sometimes just have like other stuff going on in their I mean always people have other stuff going on with their
Mhm.
lives. So yeah, like if someone's like, "Hey, like thanks for hitting me up. Thanks for reaching out. Like I'm not looking for anything like this right now," or they don't get back. Does
Mhm.
that's still, there's opportunity there that's untapped. Now, I'm not saying
Mhm.
harass people because
Yeah, of course.
that is a real thing. You have to
Yeah.
be respectful of people's time because again, they're human beings, with
Mhm.
stuff. But yeah, like I've had yeah, I've had so many things like, okay, if we're talking like this is a sync specific podcast. So like
Mhm.
if we're like sync world, I've had so many things where like they had me write for something. They reached out, they're like, hey, we need this song for this thing. I work to do it. And then it's just like it doesn't happen. It like completely just falls through. And yes,
Mhm.
it's such a sore like, oh my God, no, like, okay, that sucks. But then the
Mhm.
song, either A, they come back like 3 months later. This has happened to me actually like 5 times where
Mhm.
like several months later, they'll come back and be like, "Actually, we used it," or "Actually, yeah, yeah, okay, we actually that did pan out." And you're like, "Oh,"
Oh.
or it was a no for that project, and then several months later, that same song that you like I created for that thing, now I'm having it
Mhm.
being pitched for other stuff, right? And it lands this
Mhm.
big other thing, and then you're like, "Oh, okay, cool." So yeah, like honestly, it's a balancing act. I feel equilibrium is achieved.
So we were talking about how when you first started out, you were trying to be purposeful with like your
Yeah.
decisions in sync. When you were first building your portfolio, you make like cinematronic.
Cinematronic.
It's like kind of you make a lot of stuff. I've checked out your portfolio. You make pop music
I
too.
do.
There's like synthy stuff, there's happy stuff, there's
Yeah,
sad stuff. You make a lot of stuff.
I do.
But when you were first building your portfolio, were you specifically, because of your classical background, going into like trailer? Like I guess the frame of this question is like, do you have any advice for people trying to build their first portfolio when they're first trying to get into sync?
Yeah, I think, yes. So I think whatever you feel most comfortable slash confident in, and like that's the sound that you are sort of like moth to flame. Like if that's kind of what you're attracted to naturally, I would lean into that. Like that's a part of sonic signature or like, the identity, musical identity. Um,
Mhm.
so I would say operate like create whatever you want, but create the music, the style of music that you like, and that,
Mhm.
if whatever your walk of life has led you to, if you are kind of trained in something. I do come from like a classical music background, so that probably is part of my instinctual tendency to like think in those terms and like create that sort of sound.
Mhm.
So yeah, but then I have friends who they're phenomenal, and they're in like indie, alt punk kind of bands, and they play guitar. So when they
Mhm.
create, like, my advice to like a person like that would be, hey, lean into that and like create some cues, create some songs, playing your instrument and like highlighting what makes you you too, right? Because
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think for me, I did start from that space, and then I expanded into different forms of musical storytelling, because at the end of the day I do believe it's telling a story through music, right?
Mhm.
And that sonic though thread, that voice of mine, pun kind of intended, because sometimes I have voice like in present and score stuff too. It's
Mhm.
always there, and I think if you start off at the core, with the things that you enjoy and that you feel comfortable, confident in, you can't go wrong.
Mhm. And number-wise, what do you think is like a good number to start pitching once you've accumulated a couple of songs?
I think, well, right now, based off of how, like, it depends who you're pitching to, I guess. But if you're like
Mm.
looking for a kind of, if you're looking for a company, like a music licensing company to rep
Mhm.
your stuff, or let's just say,
Mhm.
I would probably start with like an EP's length, so 5 to 6 songs, something that it's not gonna be like they're not gonna look at it, open it, and then go, "Holy crap, there are like
That's
12
too
songs."
much.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
because they're also gonna be like, Dude, I don't have time for this. Like, I need the Cole's Notes version of like who you are," which sounds horrible, but at least just
But
in the
everyone's
beginning.
time, yeah, everyone's time is
Yeah,
valuable though. Nobody wants to
huge.
spend like 30 minutes going through something to decide if they like it or not.
You know who I thought was super genius? Like, and she's not, I actually don't know if she has stuff in sync. She should. She's super cool. Tira Whack, like, she
Mhm.
basically created this EP of like 1 minute songs. And I
Mhm.
thought that was super cool. They were awesome. They were all super different too.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but like, honestly, If we're talking brass tacks, if we're talking like efficiency, having the songs be a little bit like, don't go above 3 minutes a song,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
like do it on
Yeah.
an extended version, maybe, if you really want to,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
The first library I ever got accepted to, I just made 1 minute and 30-second songs, like a 6-song EP, and just made them all kind of like a similar vibe, and that worked. But like I've also heard that like 2 minutes and 30 seconds is a sweet spot.
totally.
But also like if they need it to be longer, you can extend it.
Oh
So
my
it's
god,
like
they'll ask.
they'll ask you to extend it anyway.
Yeah,
So it's like, yeah, it doesn't need to be a 4-minute song. Like,
totally. Yeah,
yeah.
totally agree.
Also, one thing that intrigued me about you is like you're heavily into the video game space.
Mhm.
Um, how did you delve into that realm?
I mean, I'm continuing to explore. I don't know if it's like heavily involved. It's more like medium rare. Like it's like I'm like kind of like treading into it. Yeah,
You're modest. You like
no, 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 truly, like I'd love to like get to score like a video game, like be like do everything, for the whole
yeah,
video game. Like I'd love to. That's a dream scenario for me.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely, yeah, I've created some theme songs and that sort of
Mhm.
thing for video games.
Mhm.
Yeah, getting involved with that space was a direct result of like the domino effect I mentioned earlier, where it's kind of like this thing led to this thing, led to this thing, led to this thing, and then you piece them
Mhm.
together, and then you're like, oh wow, shit, this is like a career. Okay, cool, yeah.
Ah.
So yeah, I mean, right now too, it's not actually sync, but it's part of this animated universe I'm the lead composer on, and there's a
Mhm.
Roblox like video game aspect of that.
Mm.
So that's kind of more video game stuff happening on that side for me, but Deja Vu, I guess, would be my biggest kind of video game, like the most glamorous, like the one that was popularized the most,
Mhm.
which was the theme song for the video game Deathloop. And
Mhm.
that's kind of run the gamut in terms of like the awards kind of side of things. Like it got some cool things. It got like Steve Aoki, Future, Madison Beer did remixes of it and released their own
Mhm.
covers of it, which was like super weird and
That's
cool.
wild.
Yeah, it was super
Yeah.
weird. Honestly, I was like, what is happening? And then yeah, like Steve
Yeah.
Aoki, like then, it doesn't matter, but like it was weird. Like we were texting at one point and I was like, this is
Mhm.
so weird. Like
Yeah.
just kind of, you never know, but that like truly, you don't know what is born out of these opportunities, right? Like you do the
Yeah.
thing and then
Mhm.
the legs on it can just really run really far. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean, I recently did what's it, Black Skylands. It's a video game. They just had their Nintendo Switch release and PlayStation and things like Xbox too. So I did like a
Mhm.
kind of a theme song. Well, it's called Black Skylands. So
Cool.
for them, but yeah, I mean, video games are awesome.
Yeah.
And sonically speaking, you want to talk about like cinematronic space. Like you got a lot of that
That's it.
happening. You got a lot of that
Yeah.
happening, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Cool. And when you say domino effect, as in like it was kind of the same thing where you collaborated and then it kind of led to other things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
totally, totally. And
Okay.
also like in terms of just in terms of like you do one job and then
Mhm.
that goes well and then people hear about it and then they hire you on this next project as a result. It's like
Mm.
this win led to this win led to this win. And I
Mhm.
can't necessarily like pinpoint exactly like which win it was, but I've had like it's kind of like if it were a line graph, it would be like spike, and then it's like, okay, this is really cool stuff she's doing, but then spike, and then so hopefully the entire line is moving this way, right? Like
Mhm.
where you have like it's on an incline, and that's a career.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what I mean. But those were definitely all results of collaborative process too. So 100%. Yeah.
Right. So working with other producers was kind of key for you.
Yeah, working with other producers, other artists and writers
Mhm.
as well. I think
Mhm.
like I'm a self-taught producer, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I went to school, my master's of music is in composition.
Mhm.
So like I'm very very like trained in that side of things.
Mhm.
But in terms of music production and like mixing and stuff, I'm self-taught. So like I kind of just noodled around on stuff.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, you know what
Yeah.
though? Thank you. Thanks. But I feel like it's true when they say like I don't know, like the school of life, right? Like
Mhm.
nothing like real life experience or just like figuring things out on your own. If you really are interested in something, you're going to kind of read about it or like look up videos about it or whatever on your free time. At least
Mhm.
that's what it was for me. I was just kind of like looking up, videos on how to do this or what do I do for
YouTube
this.
Academy.
Totally, totes
Yeah.
YouTube Academy,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, and, like, also asking people, like, working with other producers was awesome because 'cause I'd be like, I actually shadowed and, like, mentored with a producer when I was in Nashville, and, like, we'd
Mm.
hang in a studio, and I'd, like, literally be harassing him with questions, being like, "So, like, what vocal chain? Why would you do this, though, and that?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, cool, that's really, really cool." That stuff, it's like it's all iron for the fodder. It all goes into the creative wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So absolutely, like working with other producers, other artists, top liners, like all of that stuff. I think it's so important.
Collaboration is key.
It really
And
is. Yeah.
being able to, yeah, ask questions in real time is so useful because, like, sometimes you see something online and you're like, "Wait, what?
Totally.
How did that
Yeah.
happen?"
Yeah.
But being able to, like, yeah, ask peers to be like, "Why did you duck that curve there? Why did you, like"
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
just it's really
Yeah.
interesting. I agree. I think mentorship is important.
Huge. Yeah.
Did you do any, like, online courses, or do you wanna shout out any resources that kinda helped you along the way?
I mean, in terms of resources, I think, yeah, I didn't do like online courses specifically, but also
Mhm.
reading articles, just even on like Sweetwater and like links that exist like forums online. I don't really
Mhm.
have any top of brain. I mean, on YouTube, yeah, I'm trying to think of like there weren't really specific people I kept watching content from. It was more like I'd
Mhm.
Google something specific and then whatever video came up, I'd like hunt for it that way. But
Mm.
I will say this, kind of, because there's some really cool also, like, template stuff that exists online in terms of, like, downloading what other artists' sessions kind of look like when they do make
Mhm.
them available. Like, years ago, there was one for Billie Eilish, like, Phineas uploaded one, and
Mhm.
I downloaded that and it was just like, "I wanna see what it is like, that's happening," and it was actually such
Mhm.
a beautiful thing. I forget what song it was, but it was
Mhm.
really cool because like, in the best way, it demonstrated that, like, he was using, like, Logic stock plugins for some of the
Mhm.
things, and it
Mhm.
sounds money, right? It sounds amazing, and
Yeah.
it proves that it's not even necessarily about, like, the external hardware or the gear. It could be, like, if you have that stuff, like, amazing, that's so
Mhm.
cool. Like, I have some stuff, I'm continuing, like, building it out, but it's
Yeah.
not about the gear. It's about the person making the music. When a marathon
Mhm.
runner wins a marathon, the interview person doesn't go, "What shoes are you wearing? Are they Nike?" It's about the
Mhm.
runner. It's like who
Mhm.
did the race. So
Facts.
it's not about the gear. It's about who's creating. And you'll
Yes.
create from anything, right? It's the imagination. So
Yeah, and a good song is a good song, like, you can buy all these plugins to make your mixes spectacular, but it's like if the song doesn't slap, it's like it doesn't
that's it.
matter.
Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
What was your first ever placement?
What was my first ever placement? I feel like it was a Fox thing. I think it was The Resident.
Mm.
Yeah, The Resident on
Mm.
Fox. Yeah, I had like actually it was pretty sweet. It was this it was great. It was super surreal. Like I'm like I don't want to be like an asshole and be like, "Oh, I'm at the point now where like I hear my stuff on TV and I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, whatever, like in a show." Like it's
Yeah.
always cool. It's always cool. But
Yes.
yeah, it was super because it was so new and like, it was this like a 2.5 minute, it was the whole song basically. And it was
Mhm.
this medical scene, and they were like doing heart surgery on someone. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, but they weren't really talking that much. So the music was
Yeah.
actually at the forefront.
Standing
And
out. Yeah.
yeah, and it was super cool. It's called Bridges. Yeah, the song was called Bridges. Anyway, it was like just really cool. I was home alone and
Yeah.
I like it was weird because I like turned on the TV because I knew they were like, "Oh yeah, it's in tonight's episode." It's like, heck yeah. It was like the first
Yeah.
episode of this like new series. And
Mhm.
as I'm playing it, I'm like watching it. I remember being like, no one's here. Like, I could easily just have muted the TV and just play my song. Like, that's what it felt like. Like, "Oh, is this even
Oh.
really, like, real?" Yeah, but anyway, it was great. Like, I remember now no one cares. I mean, they care, but now none of my family and friends, they won't text me or call me. But, like,
It's
at
not
that time
novel.
no,
Yeah.
at that time, my parents were in Florida at the time they called me, and they're like, "Oh my god, like, this is so cool," and my cousins. It was, like, really exciting. Yeah, I miss that.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, it was cool.
do you remember how you got that first placement?
Yeah, who I created that song with Zayd Wolf, who's, like, this
Okay.
killer artist, I mean, kills it in the sync space, but just kills in general.
Mhm.
And Jennardine, who's this
Mhm.
Australian artist, and we were in Nashville when we did the session. Anyways,
Mhm.
they were working with like a music licensing company that was based in Nashville at the
Mhm.
time, and so I think I connected. They like wanted to send the song to someone over there. And
Mhm.
then that's how it landed in. I mean, so then they took the song. I guess they were pitching it for stuff, and
Mhm.
then it landed The Resident. So,
Very cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah,
Yeah, the first sync is always the most exciting because it's just like,
yeah.
"Oh shit, like I'm actually gonna make money now."
I know, yeah, totally. I was like, "Yo," and it was, like, pretty good money. Like, that's the thing, like,
Yeah.
in sync, there's some stuff that you're like, "That's cool," but it's like, it's not really you're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, whatever," but that was actually a dangerous bar to set actually probably for me because I was like, "Oh, is this what it's like every time? Amazing. Wow." Yeah, but it was cool.
Yeah, but also shoot for the stars, land on the moon. Like, it's good.
Totally.
You're kinda like, "This is
Absolutely.
the bar now, like, I need to keep going."
Totally. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good incentivizer. You're like, "Oh,
Yes.
yeah, keep doing
Yes.
it." Yeah.
I need more.
Yes, exactly.
Um, is there anything you wanna say before we wrap up the episode?
I would say, I mean, honestly, it's a long game, so I think that, if you're just in it for the money, do something else. Do something else. There's other ways to
Mhm.
make money. It's not like,
Mhm.
honestly, it's not about the money. This is like if you wanna be able to create music
Mhm.
and have other listeners connect with your sound and connect with your music, then I would recommend exploring, the film TV sync space. I think
Mhm.
that, like I said earlier, a no is secretly a yes in disguise. You just really don't
Mhm.
know when that's going to come to fruition, but it usually does. And
Mhm.
no one is really gonna come forward and I dub the music producer or I dub the songwriter artist. No
Mhm.
one's gonna do that. Like you just kind of carve out the space and occupy said space. Take that
Mhm.
investment in yourself, and you won't have regrets.
Mm. Beautifully said.
Thanks.
Are you working on anything that you wanna shout out that you're excited about? I know, like, sometimes there's, like, NDA stuff, so you can't mention anything, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
is there anything you wanna shout out?
Yeah, I mean, I'll shout out, yeah, there's something that I can't talk about, but there is this but I mean it's a kids animated universe. So if there's
Mhm.
any kid, listeners, that's cool. It's called Future Chicken. It's like this animated universe. There's Future Chicken Today Show, there's a podcast, there's like this video game thing. Anyway, it's a CBC thing. So yeah,
Cool.
it'll be kind of releasing soonish, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think I just received word I might have an Olympics placement for this thing I did. So for Olympics
Woo,
Paris,
congrats.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, yeah, the pendulum continues to swingeth. You know? Yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
where can people find you?
So my artist project FJØRA, there's like the social media stuff, like, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And then I have my personal Instagram, which connects to FJØRA anyway, which is Alex Petkovski. I guess my website, alexandrapetkovski.com. I don't know. You can find me around. Just Google some stuff.
Yeah, and I'll leave all of your links in the description too.
Cool.
And thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to follow Selling the Soundtrack on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Thanks so much for having me.